The first speaker that you're going to be hearing from today is a new good friend of mine named Matt Lloyd. Now, Matt has been one of our top affiliates in several of the last biggest product launches that we've promoted. And because I saw him showing up on the scene, actually the first time I ever saw Matt Lloyd, anything from Matt, was a Facebook ad that he was doing for Get Traffic 3.0. And it was damn good. And I clicked on it and I read the copy and I saw his bonus packages and how he put everything together, and I said to myself, this is a really good marketer. And so over the course of a few months, I ended up building a relationship with Matt. And over the last few months, Matt and I have actually been partnered up and working on a lot of different projects together. And so one of the things that we've been working on is really Facebook advertising. And if you've seen pretty much any of my ads on Facebook over the last few months, I've had a few. Have you guys noticed that? That was all Matt Lloyd pretty much behind the scene, taking care of all that, managing all that, building out those campaigns, those strategies, driving that traffic. And we've also been working on a couple other things. Matt is one of the people who has really developed the technology that I'm going to be sharing with you later on today. He's the one who really helped us set it up in our business on a whole new level, and it's kind of how we figured out, I don't want to let the whole cat out of the bag, it's kind of how we figured out this new sales process that I believe is the future of really selling any sort of big decision item online. So if it's a more difficult decision and people need a little bit more time to be educated, to be researched, this process that we're going to share with you is the exact future of how to do it. And when you see this whole thing laid out, it's going to blow your mind. I mean, it's just, it is rad. And so Matt was instrumental in us setting this up in our company in the last 90 days. So I'm extremely excited for the rest of your day here. So with that being said, I'd like you guys to put your hands together and welcome to the stage Mr. Matt Lloyd. Do your thing, my friend. You are absolutely awesome. And
okay.
See you guys in 90 minutes. Whoa.
So, hi everyone. As Jonathan said, my name is Matt Lloyd, and I do have a confession. I've actually never done one of these before. So, for the past 3 weeks I've been putting in a lot of effort into this, because what I want to talk about, it's possibly more important to your future online than anything else. And these are things that have taken me maybe 3 years to fully understand. So if you're just getting started, what I'm going to share with you today, you really want to pay attention to it. It's really important. So here's what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to be sharing with you the real truth about traffic. Okay, and why you're not getting as much as you'd possibly like, and what to do about it. Okay, I'm going to approach traffic from an entirely different angle than you've ever heard before. Plus, I'm going to talk a little bit about Facebook pay-per-click training. I'm going to give you some advice that I wish I had got in the very beginning. It's going to shorten that learning curve a little bit. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to tell you a story first. As you can see, this is a guy called Samuel Langley. Okay, and if we go back to the year 1903, Samuel Langley, he wanted to be the first guy to ever fly. Okay, so he wanted to be the first guy to ever fly an aircraft manned by him and be able to land it. And around this time period, there was sort of a race on to be the first person to do that. And US Congress, they actually backed Samuel Langley, and they gave him $50,000. In today's terms, that's over $1 million. So it was a lot of money back then. Okay? And Samuel Langley, he invested most of that money. He hired his own team of around 50 people. He invested a lot of that money into developing an engine for this aircraft. October 7th, 1903, they were ready to launch this plane. Okay, so they'd put a lot of work into planning it, building it. They were ready to do it. They launched it off the side of a boat, and this is basically what happened. You can see a photo there, bottom right side, it crashed. Okay, Langley decided to try again. So December the 8th, they poured even more money into it. They redid this plane, and again, this time it crashed again. Now this pretty much ended Langley's whole pursuit of being the first person to fly. They had invested a lot of money into it. US Congress at the time decided, we don't want to invest any more into this because this just is not going to happen. Now, 9 days after Langley's big crash, after he gave up, a sturdy, well-designed aircraft, only costing about $1,000 US, struggled into air in Kitty Hawk. Most of you will know the story. And that actually became the first aircraft to ever fly. People behind that were the Wright brothers. So I'm sure you've all heard of the Wright brothers. The Wright brothers, these were guys who had wanted to fly ever since they were about 9 years old. Okay, so it had always been a big dream of theirs. The Wright brothers, 9 days after, they succeeded. Now, what you've got to realize is that they created a lot of aircraft, like something like 47. Most of them crashed. Okay, but finally they succeeded. Now, once their approach was a little bit different to Langley. Once and only once, they had built that aircraft that could actually glide, okay, so they could virtually launch it off the top of a hill and it would glide down to the ground. Once, and only once they'd done that, then they thought about the power. Okay, and it only flew for about 12 seconds, so it wasn't exactly a long time, but they were the first guys to ever do it. And so what happened? Everyone's heard of the Wright brothers. Most of you would have heard of the Wright brothers. No one's heard of Langley. Okay, Langley, he actually died a very bitter and disappointed man because, they'd invested a lot of money behind him and he hadn't succeeded. So the question is, why did the Wright brothers succeed and Langley not? Okay, one historian put it like this. I want you to pay attention to this. Langley had spent most of 4 years building an extraordinary engine to lift their heavy flying machine. The Wrights had spent most of 4 years building a flying machine so artfully designed that it could be propelled into the air by a fairly ordinary internal combustion engine. So the Wright brothers, their approach was to make this aircraft that could actually fly before they even thought about adding power. Now you might be wondering, why am I telling you this? Why am I giving you a history lesson? What's it got to do with my business? And the answer is, this has everything to do with your business. Everything. Facebook pay-per-click, which I'm going to touch on today, it's virtually like the engine, okay, that you would put on an aircraft. And it can send you a lot of traffic. So if you wanted to, if you were prepared to pay for it, you could get 10,000 clicks or 10,000 people in front of your website by next week, if you wanted to. If you were willing to pay for those clicks, you could get that amount of traffic. You could possibly get a lot more. Okay, now your website, on the other hand, that's like the aircraft structure. Depending on how well you design that, it's either going to fly, maybe half fly, or just crash and burn. And when I say will it fly, what I'm talking about is, will it convert visitors into customers? Okay, that's the question. Now, if you have a website and it can't fly or it can't convert visitors into sales, it doesn't matter how much power you add to it. It doesn't matter if you get 10,000 clicks, it's still going to crash. And yet that's what most people do. They have a substandard website, they go chasing traffic as if that's the answer, when that traffic has no chance of converting. Okay, that's what, when I say most people, I'm talking about literally 98% of people in our industry. The biggest mistake that people make when coming into this industry, and if you're brand new, pay extra attention to this, the biggest mistake is thinking about traffic like an opportunity seeker. Most people think like that. They go and design a blog, and it's a substandard blog when it comes to converting visitors into sales, and then they think the answer to making money online is to go and get more traffic. because they've been taught that more traffic equals more money. It's one of the most damaging beliefs in this industry. And although it's somewhat true, it's only true if your sales and marketing process can convert that traffic into sales. So if you've been getting, let's say you've only been getting 15 unique visitors to your website for the past day, and you've been doing that for the past 10 weeks, if you haven't got sales yet, the problem is not a lack of traffic. The problem is your aircraft. It's your website. It can't convert visitors into sales. When it comes to making money online, this is the equation. It's traffic plus conversions equals sales. All right? Traffic plus conversions equals sales. And most people completely forget about the conversion part. Okay? Or they think it's not really that important. And when you make that mistake, when you think it's all about the engine of the aircraft that's going to make it fly, or you think it's all about traffic, this is what happens. All right? Your website is going to crash and burn, just like Langley's did. So if you've been doing this for years and you haven't yet got results, I'll bet that this is the main reason. Okay, you're trying to send traffic to a substandard website that just cannot convert traffic or unique visitors into sales at an adequate rate. Okay? What most people fail to realize is that even if you have this website, even if you were to get 1,000 or 10,000 clicks by tomorrow, it wouldn't really matter because you can't convert that traffic into sales. And you might get the odd sale, but you've got to remember that all traffic has a cost. All traffic has a cost. And I want to end a myth that a lot of people perpetuate in this industry right now. There is no such thing as free traffic. So when you hear gurus telling you about how you can get free traffic, it's complete rubbish. Okay, there's no such thing. All traffic has a cost. Even SEO or article marketing, they have a cost. Okay, and the cost might not necessarily be money, it's time. So if you want to do something like article spinning, you might think, well, that's free. I create an article, I put it into an article spinner, I get 10,000 unique articles by tomorrow. What you've got to realize is that most of those articles are crap. You can't even read them. Okay, and why would you want to have that associated with your brand? Okay, that's actually going to do damage to your brand. People read that and they see that you're behind it, and it doesn't look good. So all traffic has a cost. It's either time or money behind it. There's no such thing as free traffic. So if you're going to go out there and, seek traffic and spend money on traffic, which you always do in the form of time or money, doesn't it make sense for you to think like the Wright brothers and design this aircraft first before you even think about adding power to it? Doesn't it make sense to build a website that at least has a chance of converting visitors into sales before you go and add traffic? I want to give you an example. You've all heard of the .com bust, right? Back in the early 2000s, there was a company called Pets.com, and it wasn't around for very long. Now, Pets.com, they thought, like most people in this industry do, that traffic equals sales. So they went and spent a fortune on advertising. For example, at the Super Bowl, they got ads for the Super Bowl, spent millions of dollars for a 30-second ad slot. And what happened? They were spending $270 to get a customer, right? And they could only monetize customers for about $75. So you can see that if you pay $270 to get a customer, and they're only worth $70 to you, you're going to go broke pretty quickly. Something like $300 million was invested into that company, and all of it was lost, okay, because they were thinking the wrong way. So the question, I want you to remember this and perhaps write this down. The question is not, how do I get more traffic? The question you should be asking is, how do I make more profitable sales? All right? It's not about getting more traffic. It's about making more profitable sales. So you start off, like I said, building that structure that can actually fly, like the Wright brothers did. Once you get it so it can actually glide, then you go and add the power. Then you go and add traffic. Now, I'm talking a lot about, you get it to it can fly, and you might be wondering, well, what exactly does that mean? All right? And I'm talking about how well it converts. And there is one number in your business that is more important than any other number. Okay, it's way more important. And that number will tell you how well your website can actually fly. And I'll guarantee you that 97% of people in our industry, probably more, have no clue what that number is. Okay, and that number is your average visitor value. It's more important than anything else. It's more important than unique visitors. It's more important than average time on site, average page views. All of these numbers pale in comparison next to average visitor value. Now, if you've never heard of average visitor value, here's what it is. Average visitor value tells you how much a click is worth to your business. It's the maximum you can afford to pay to get someone in front of your website before you start, well, to break even, before you start losing money. Okay? And unless you know these values or this number, you cannot make informed traffic buying decisions. Okay, so any traffic that you go and buy, even the so-called free strategies, which aren't really free, any traffic that you go and buy will be based on hope. Okay, you'll be spending time or money getting traffic, and you will be hoping that it makes you money, and you cannot build a business based on hope. Okay, it doesn't work like that. So average visitor value, if you want to write this down, this is how it works. Take your gross sales. Okay, so let's say we sell 10 units in a day, and let's say that each sale we make is worth $100. So our gross sales for the day is $1,000. Divide that by the unique visitors to your website. Let's say in that day we had 1,000 people in front of our website. That's going to give you your average visitor value. $1,000 divided by 1,000 unique visitors gives you $1 per visitor. On average, that is what a visitor is worth to your business. And that means that you can afford up to $1 to get someone in front of your website before you start losing money. And yet, like I said, most people in our industry, they have no idea what it means. It tells you how well your aircraft can fly. That's what it tells you before you're going out of power. And I want to prove it to you. I want everyone in this room to be completely honest with me. If you can tell me what your average visitor value is, right down to the nearest cent, okay, an accurate number, if you can tell me what it is right now, please put up your hand. All right, Leo. So there's about 150 people in this room, and we had one person put up their hand. Okay, so literally in this room, 99% of people don't know what it is. Now, this room is not exactly representative of the entire internet marketing community. You guys are going to be much better than the average person because the fact that you're here, you're willing to invest your money and time to get here, means that this sample is, it's a much better sample than your average internet marketer. So what that tells us is that maybe if you go to the general internet marketing community, something like over 99% of people have no idea what this number is, the most important number in your business. And here's a quote by Rich Schafran. Rich has influenced a lot of what I do. A question? You're asking me, is break even okay? Yeah, break even is good. Anytime you break even, so if you have to spend $1 to get someone in front of your website and you only monetize that visitor by $1, you celebrate, because even though you'd made no profit at that point in time, you've got a customer. You've just brought yourself a customer, and that's what this business is really about, buying customers. Because you've got to look at the lifetime value of a customer. So if you've just spent $1, got someone in front of your website, they buy a product, you made $1 back, all right? Well, sure, you haven't made any profit right then in that point in time, but over the next maybe 3 years, you can sell them lots of additional products. So if you have to spend $1 to get someone in front of your website, that's perfectly fine. I want to further drive this point home, okay? I want you to imagine a scenario, right? Let's pretend that I finish my presentation and, you're really thirsty and you feel like a Coke. All right, so you go out and you look for a vending machine to buy a can of Coke for $2. You find a vending machine and you put in $2. Instead of hearing the Coke, you hear change. Okay, all right, you think, all right, what's going on here? You put in your hand and you bring out $1.80 in coins. So you're a little bit annoyed. The machine has just ate 20 cents of your money. But you find a cheaper drink and you put in your $1.80 again, Except this time, again, you get change. And this time it gives you back $1.60. So now you're getting a little bit more annoyed. You find another drink for $1.60. You put in that change. This time it gives you back $1.55. This vending machine is eating 10% of the money you put in. So for every dollar you put in, it gives you 90 cents back. Okay, my question to you is, how long could you stand in front of that vending machine putting money into it before you went broke? Okay, and the answer is not very long. Actually, the mathematical answer is you could stand there for infinity, because the amounts would get smaller and smaller, but practically you'd be out of money pretty quickly. You'd be down to like 10 or 5 cents. So you couldn't stand there for that long. Imagine another scenario. Let's say you didn't go to that vending machine. You went to one upstairs. And this one was also $2 per can of Coke. So you put in $2. You put in $2, except this time it gives you back $2.20. So you think, all right, well, maybe someone left 20 cents there, but I'm happy. You put in $2.20, you order a more expensive drink, except this time it gives you back $2.40. Now you're getting pretty excited, all right? So you do it again. And this time it gives you back $2.60. Now you're thinking, or $2.65, now you're thinking, all right, this is good. This vending machine is giving you 10% more back than what you put in. Now my question to you is, how long could you stand in front of this vending machine putting money into it? Yeah, forever, and you'd be crazy not to stand there and keep on putting money into it. Yeah, let's put honesty aside, and you could stand there forever, and you would get very, very rich doing that, because once compound interest kicked in, you'd start basically printing money. Your website is either one of these two vending machines right now. The money you are putting into that vending machine is like the money you are spending on traffic. And as I said, all traffic has a cost. So even if you think you're doing free traffic strategies like SEO, and you think it's free, it's not. There's a cost, okay, because your time has value. So right now you are putting money into that vending machine, and you're getting money back. The money you get out of that vending machine is like your average visitor value. And what you guys have just told me is that most of you don't know what you're getting in return. So the situation is you're putting money into a vending machine and you don't really know how much change it's giving you. Now if I put you in front of a faulty vending machine and I said, hey, keep putting money into this, but I'm not going to tell you how much it's going to give you back in return, how long would you do that for? Right? You wouldn't do it for that long, because you'd be crazy. You'd want to know what you're getting back in return. And as you just saw, most people in this industry don't even know what they're getting in return. So most people, in effect, they're standing in front of a vending machine, putting money into it and hoping they make a profit. This is what you're aiming for. This is what I call the holy grail. So everything you do in your day-to-day operations is to get to this point. It's to get to the point where your average visitor value is greater than your average cost per click. What that means is you found a vending machine where when you put in money, you get more back in return. And once you get to this level, then you can scale up. So every millionaire in our industry, this is where they're at. They spend money on traffic. They spend 90 cents on a click, and their average visitor value is $1. They make a profit. They can afford to reinvest that. Whereas most people are making a lot less than what they're putting in. That's why they can't grow. Okay? Now you might be wondering, well, what if I'm brand new and I don't yet have my own marketing funnel? And the truth is, if you knew, at some point you do want to create your own product. It's not really an option, it's a must. So at some point you do have to craft your own marketing funnel. And in the beginning, you're actually in a race against time. You see, when most of us get started, we only have, usually a pretty small budget we can put into advertising. You're in a race to fine-tune your aircraft, to fine-tune your website to the point where your average visitor value exceeds your average cost per click before you run out of money. And I know what that's like. 2009, when I was still pretty new, I was advertising on Google AdWords before it completely kicked us off. And I remember racking up a bill of about $1,500, and I couldn't afford to pay it because my average Vista value wasn't that high, so I wasn't getting any money in return. And I can remember, Google virtually coming after me, sending me legal letters and for like 3 months saying you better pay up. Okay, so I know what that's like. And if you're just getting started, that's the situation you're in. You've got to fine-tune your website to the point where average Vista value equals or is greater than average cost per click. Okay? When you start out, expect to put more money into that vending machine than you get back. That's perfectly normal because you're still figuring out what works. But as long as you're measuring, then you can at least have a chance of improving it. Okay? And most people, because they're not measuring, they go and spend, say, $200 on Facebook pay-per-click ads, and they don't make that money back, and they think, okay, well, Facebook doesn't work. And they give up. That's what most people do, because they're not even measuring it. Okay, so I've told you how important this is, and now you might be wondering, okay, well, that's great. How do I improve it? The first step, okay, the most important step is to start measuring. The mere act of measuring something every single day will allow you to improve because, as they say, what gets measured gets managed. Now, as we saw, most people aren't measuring this, but if you start measuring this every single day from this point on, I guarantee you that over time it will improve. Because as I said, this is the most important number in your business. If you're measuring it every day, consistently working on improving it, that's how you're going to grow your business. So the first thing I want you to do, it's a little bit hard for you guys to see this. Let me just read this out. On the left, you have the dates. So every single day we record this. This is, you can either do this in Excel or Google Docs. Okay, I prefer Google Docs because then I can share it with a virtual assistant and they can put the numbers in. I don't have to worry about it. But you can see in the left column we've got new customers since yesterday. So the number of customers you're getting every day. Then we've got total customers. We've got new leads since yesterday, so daily leads, total number of leads, total sales generated, today's sales, so that's your gross sales you made in the last 24 hours, and today's clicks. Because you're measuring, now you're going to know how many clicks you're getting to your website. You take those sales for today, divide them by today's clicks. That's going to give you your average Vista value. Now, as you can see, for this particular website, it's ranging from about $1.20 to about $4.22. Now, what's going to happen is, if we keep on doing this for a month, we're going to start to notice there's an average here. Now, you can see here, it's something like $2.94. That's telling us every Vista we get in front of our website is worth about $2.29 to our business. But if you're not measuring, you have no idea what this number is. And then this is really important. Once you get your average Vista value every single day, because now you're measuring, plot it in a graph. This is one of the most exciting developments in the history of humankind, the ability to display data over a period of time, the visual representation of data. It really is, because then you can see the trends. Now, this is only over, say, 10 days, so you can't really see much of a trend here, but if we extended this for about 30 days, you would start to notice that the average Vista value, which is on the y-axis, the part sticking up, you can see it's fluctuating around anywhere from $3 to $4. Now, over 30 days, we would be able to see a more consistent pattern, and this is really important because over time, you're going to notice whether you're trending up or you're trending down. That means visitors are becoming more and more valuable to your website over time or less. And let me tell you something, your business, it's either growing or it's declining. It never stays in the same place. Because even if you're not making any changes, the market around you is changing. Okay, there's new people coming into this industry, new products, so it's always changing. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. And unless you're measuring this, you have no idea. Okay? So now I want to show you how you can increase your average Vista value by 60% just by improving 5 leverage points in your business. This is basically the formula to you making money online. It's leads times conversion rate. So if you get 100 leads in a day and you have a conversion rate of 3%, that means that 3 of those 100 leads buy. That's going to equal your customers, okay? Frequency of transactions, how often they buy from you in the next year, times your average transaction sale. Let's say you're selling a $97 product and you have a few upsells in there. On average, a customer is worth $250 to your business. Okay, that's going to be your average transaction value. That's going to give you total revenue. Multiply that by your margins. Now, most of us in the information marketing business, our margins are 100%. We create a product and we get to keep all of it. Okay? So it doesn't really apply. But if you're promoting an affiliate offer, well then, sure, you might, if let's say you're promoting Jonathan's products, you get paid a 50% margin. You refer a sale to him and he pays you 50%. Now, this is what you can do. If you take those 5 leverage points and you increase them by just 10%, which isn't a big amount, say you're getting 100 leads, you increase that to 110. Say you get a conversion rate of 3%, that means 3 in 100 leads buy. You increase that by 3.3, just 10%. Frequency of transactions, average transaction size, so on, these 5 points, if you increase each by only 10%, you actually increase your profit by 60%. If you go through and you do the math, it sort of compounds on itself. So small incremental changes can virtually almost double your business. Okay, so you only have to increase each by 10%. It's not a huge amount. Now, you might be saying, I know there's always people who just say things like, well, I'm not good with numbers. I don't really know how to do that stuff. I'm just not good with that. The truth is, if you are going to market online and get traffic, even if you're using the so-called free strategies, which aren't free because they take up your time, you need to get comfortable around these numbers. You need to be able to measure them. Because if you put it this way, if you know how to track your numbers, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get rich in this business. It doesn't give you an advantage. But if you don't know how to do it, that puts you at a big disadvantage because you are competing against people like me, Jonathan, Mike Dillard, whatever, all of those sort of guys. They all know their numbers, and you're competing against those people. So what you've got to realize is that, personally, I'm going to be constantly fine-tuning my aircraft, making it more and more aerodynamic so it can fly better. So when I add power to it, it flies even better. I'm going to keep on doing that. And if you're not doing that, well then, that's going to be a little bit tough. Okay, it's going to be a little bit tough for you to grow a business. So you have to be doing this. And like I say here, anyone who's ever made over $1 million in this business, I guarantee you, they're watching their numbers closely. Okay, so if you're not watching your numbers right now, you've got to turn this into a habit where you're doing it every single day. And I put here, generally speaking, the more money they make, the more meticulous they are about their numbers. I've been working with Jonathan for, I don't know, like 5 months now. So we email each other back and forth because I'm doing a lot of his Facebook pay-per-click campaigns. And I've noticed that, he's always on the numbers. And he wants to know, what are we doing to improve numbers? He's always asking me that, constantly, right? And you wonder, well, how did he sell over 12 million online so far? Well, that gives you a pretty big clue. Now, you can see, there's a photo of me. I'm going to explain that. In any industry, the business that is most efficient at extracting value from its resources will usually win. Now, as online entrepreneurs, our resource is traffic. That's what we're extracting value from. So if we get traffic to our website, we're converting that into sales. So in our business, the business that has the highest average visitor value will win. Okay, they will get the lion's share of the money to be made in this industry. I want to give you an example. I grew up on a small wheat farm in Western Australia, and the local town, this is kind of like the outback, I guess you'd call it, not really, but it's in the country. The local town it was a very small town. I went to the primary school there, and when I was like 7, the population of that school reached an all-time high. it reached 52 students. Okay, business was booming. Now, a few years later, after I'd left that primary school and I went off to boarding school because we didn't have high schools in the town, like 2 years after I left, the school shut down because they got down to just 2 students and 3 teachers. Okay, and obviously that wasn't going to work for very long. So the school shut down, and now that town, it's virtually a ghost town. There's about 15 people in the town that I live about 5 miles out of. It's a ghost town. Now, what actually happened is, the reason why the population reached a boom of 52 students was because all the local farmers in the area, there were quite a few of them, and they all had kids. But over time, what happened is the bigger farmers in the area started buying up land and pushing the smaller farmers out. Smaller farmers couldn't survive because economies of scale. They couldn't compete. So they had to sell up and go to the city. Over time, the big farmers got bigger and bigger and bigger. So the population of kids going to that school got smaller and smaller. And the motto became, get big or get out. You either had to expand or you wouldn't survive. And the automotive industry too. You go back to since the 1900s, if you look in the US history, there's been over 2,000 automotive companies. So over 2,000 car companies have started up since 1900. How many survive today? There's less than about 10. Right? There's a very small handful of big companies that survive. Over 2,000 companies have virtually gone out of business. That's the way it is in any industry. Okay, usually a lot of people flood in to the industry, and the businesses that are most efficient at extracting value, they go on to succeed, and the rest usually don't. Like I said, as an online entrepreneur, right now your resource is traffic. And whether you're going to be here in 5 or 10 years or not will come down to how well you are able to extract value from that traffic, how high your average visitor value is. Okay, so that's why I'm really going on about average visitor value. It's everything in your business. It really is. Reason is, if you can't afford to spend more to get traffic than your competitors, they can. And what ends up happening is that the websites that have the highest average visitor value, they get the lion's share of the traffic, because traffic usually flows to the websites that are most efficient at extracting its value. I'll give you an example. Most of you would have heard of Mike Dillard, Magnetic Sponsoring. Did you know that they get around 200 to 300 leads every single day? And their leads come from affiliates. So affiliates, like me and many of you, will send them traffic, because the reason why we do it is because that traffic usually converts. They fine-tune their processes, so any traffic we send, it has a high average visitor value. So if they were to stop getting traffic right now, they would continue getting 200 to 300 leads every single day without even trying. So if you can get a higher average visitor value than anyone else, simply create an affiliate program, and affiliates like me will happily send you our traffic, because that, you're going to pay us back. But you'll never get to that stage unless you can work on this number. Now, buying traffic, let's start to transition into actually buying traffic and then Facebook pay-per-click. What makes some traffic more valuable than others? 2 things, volume of traffic and quantity of traffic. It has a lot to do with responsiveness. If you've ever heard that term thrown around before, how responsive is a prospect? Responsiveness is a measure of how often that audience thinks about your particular topic. So for example, I am a very responsive lead for a marketing course, because I think about marketing 24/7, all day, all night. It's really all I think about. I'm thinking about it a lot. Now, most of the people in this room, most of you are thinking about entrepreneurship, marketing, those things too. A lot of you think about it, some less, some more than me. So this room as a whole is a very responsive audience for any marketing training. More importantly is past behavior, whether it's a buyer or a non-buyer. Okay, so for example, if you gave me a choice between marketing to 100 people, marketing a Facebook pay-per-click coaching program to 100 people who brought other Facebook pay-per-click training programs before, so that's one choice, or marketing to 2,000 people who are mildly interested, I would take the 100 people every single time because they have proven responsiveness. They are proven buyers. They brought other courses related to mine. On average, a buyer lead is worth something like 9 times more than a generic lead. So if you can market to proven buyers who brought products like what you're offering, you're going to get a much higher response. I'll give you an example. Many of you would have heard of the company called Groupon, the website. Google recently made a bid for $6.5 billion to buy that company. Why were they willing to pay that amount of money? $6.5 billion for a company it's pretty brand new. It hasn't been around for that long. And the truth is, quality of traffic. You see, Groupon, if you don't know it, it's basically a site where you go and get deals. But all the traffic that Groupon gets, that's the highest grade traffic you can get. People only go to Groupon to look for deals. In other words, they go to Groupon with a credit card in hand looking to spend money. Now that's quality traffic. That's why Google is willing to pay so much money for Groupon. Now, unfortunately, there is an inverse relationship between targeted traffic and quantity. So for example, the more targeted traffic you get, the smaller group of people you're going to be marketing to. So if you can create an offer that's able to reach out to the less targeted leads or less targeted traffic and is able to convert that traffic into sales, that's how you build a fairly big business. You look at the most successful online businesses, that's what they're able to do. Now, I want to point something out. Buying traffic, virtually it's buying clicks. And what you have to realize is that not all clicks are equal. And this, again, this is one of the most sort of damaging beliefs in our industry. It's the idea that all clicks are equal, and they're really not. So in some cases, $2 clicks, people clicking on your ads and costing you $2 will be worth more to your business than 10-cent clicks. And the reason is based on how well they convert. I want to give you an example. There's 150 people in this room, approximately. Let's say I got in a car and I went down to downtown San Diego and I rounded up 150 strangers off the street and I brought them here in a bus and I put them in a room next door. Now, if I were to deliver a sales presentation on a Facebook coaching program to you guys, and then I was to go into that next room and do the exact same thing, what do you think would happen? In this room, I haven't really sold on stage before, so I don't know if I'd be that great at it. I've sold on webinars before, but I'm sure I could get maybe 10%, possibly a lot more, right? But if I went to that room and I did the exact same thing, I might be lucky to get, 2% or less. It's a much less responsive crowd because, for one, you guys, let's be honest, are proven buyers. You're just like me. The fact that you're here now, you are willing to invest more money to come to this event from Unstoppable Entrepreneur, we all are proven buyers. Whereas that crowd, they're not. They're just randomly chosen off the street. And also, you guys are much more responsive. You're a little bit like me. You think about this stuff a lot more. Whereas that random crowd, they don't think about this stuff. They think about what they're having for dinner that night or their jobs. Okay, they're not really thinking like we are. We're a much more responsive crowd for courses on how to get more traffic. Okay, so any clicks I got from this room, I would rather have you guys clicking on my ads than that crowd. So can you see the difference there? These clicks would be worth a lot more, like a multiple, maybe 10 times or more, than any clicks from the next room. The buying cycle. This is important to understand. Every time someone buys, they go through this process. So rarely do we just decide we want to buy. Usually, the more expensive the product, the longer this buying cycle is going to be. And it starts off usually with an awareness, then consideration, then interest, preference, and then purchase. but it's a series of stages we each go through. And you can see on the right side, anyone who's at the stage on the end, they virtually have a credit card in hand and they're ready to spend money. Okay, so they are ready to spend money. Whereas someone on the left side, they're just starting to get interested. So maybe they're not even at that stage yet where they're looking to spend money. Maybe they're just mildly curious. And that doesn't really mean whether they're going to buy or not. So an example of this is buying a car. When you decide to buy a car, you rarely wake up in the morning and say, I think I'm going to buy a car today. It doesn't happen like that, right? Usually what happens is you're driving in your existing car and you start to notice, it's getting a little bit old, the engine doesn't sound too good, paint's fading, the air conditioner stops working. You start to notice all these little flaws and you start to entertain the idea of getting a brand new car. So you start to think about it more and more. You're becoming more and more responsive. So at first, you might think about it twice a week. And then over time, you're thinking about it every single day. You're advancing along that buying cycle. Okay, so you're going through this process: awareness, consideration, preference. Okay, so you start to think, all right, I'm going to go get a new car, or I'm going to start looking. You go to a car yard, you start to narrow it down to the make, to the model, to the year, and then at the end, you're ready to virtually buy. At the very end, you're going to Google and you're typing in something like Ford Falcons 2003 second-hand buy now, something like that. Your search gets more and more specific. So that's usually the process that people go through. And what I want you to understand, this next thing, this is something that I heard or I learned from Dagan Smith, a marketer I really respect. I heard this last year and it's always stood out in my mind. If you're going to go and buy traffic, and as I said, all traffic has a cost, so anytime you get traffic, you're essentially buying it, you're either doing one of two different things. You've got fixed cost advertising, or you've got performance-based advertising. Now, fixed cost is when you outlay an amount. Okay, so you pay up front, and then any response you get after that, you're not really paying for that response. You've already outlaid your money. So an example, let's say you place a banner ad on a website. You're going to pay that website up front. Then they'll show you a banner ad for, say, 30 days. That's an example of fixed cost. Or another example, you place an ad in a newspaper. So you pay the newspaper in advance. Or if you do an e-zine solo ad, you pay someone to send out an email to their list promoting your site. You usually pay in advance. Now, I want you to write this down. Your only goal with fixed cost advertising is to maximize response. That's your only goal. You want as many people clicking on your ads as possible. Okay? Now, performance-based, slightly different. Performance-based advertising, this is where you pay every time someone takes an action. So for example, Facebook pay-per-click or any pay-per-click. Every time someone clicks on your ad and there's an action, you pay for that. You might pay 20 cents a click, you might pay $1.50 a click, but every time someone takes an action, you're paying for it. Same with CPA, cost per action, a little bit more advanced, or pay-per-view, PPV. Those sort of things are they are performance-based advertising. Every time someone takes an action, you pay. Now, in this case, your objective is not to maximize response, because if you're doing pay-per-click on Facebook, if that was your goal to maximize response, like I said, you could get 10,000 clicks or 10,000 people in front of your website by tomorrow. If you were willing to pay for it, you'd have a very big bill. So if your goal is to maximize response, you would go broke very quickly. Instead, with performance-based advertising, your goal is to get the most targeted response. So you can see the buying cycle there, and at the very end, when people are virtually ready to buy, credit card in hand, these are the prospects that you're targeting. You're paying every time they take an action. So you don't want people clicking on your ads who aren't good leads, who aren't going to convert. Why would you want to pay $1 to have someone click on your ad, put them in front of your website who have no interest in what you're offering? You'd go broke very quickly. So anytime you do performance-based advertising, that's your objective. Now, before we get into pay-per-click on Facebook, I want to just talk about pay-per-click on the search engines very quickly. It's important you understand. Facebook pay-per-click, the biggest mistake people make is thinking of it as if it's like pay-per-click on the search engines, like Google AdWords. And it's not. It's entirely different. You see, on the search engines, let's say, if we go back in time about 5 years when home business entrepreneurs were still allowed on Google, what you might do is you would be advertising based on keywords. So anytime someone types in a keyword that you're bidding on, your ad would actually show. So if they type in something like start an online business, you might bid on that keyword, so Google would show your ad based on that keyword. Why is that so important? Well, one of the best direct response marketers who ever lived, Robert Collier, this is what he had to say. Always enter the conversation taking place in your customer's mind or your prospect's mind. So in everything you do when marketing, your ads, your lead capture page, your sales video, essentially what you're doing is you're echoing back their conversation to them. You use their language. You talk to them just how they're talking to themselves in their head. That's how you're going to get the highest response. Based on the keyword that they typed in, you could tell where they're up to in that buying process. You could tell whether they are just starting to get interested or whether they're at the last stage where they're searching with credit card in hand and they're ready to buy. Based on that keyword, you could get a very good idea of what's going on in their mind. Okay, and that's priceless. Facebook, it's different. With Facebook, we're targeting people based on their likes. So when you're on Facebook and you click on like, if you like someone's fan page, you're saying you like that, and Facebook record that, and then advertisers, like you and me, come along, and we have our ads shown to people based on their likes. So if someone likes Jonathan Budd, right, he's got like 30,000 fans, if someone clicks on like Jonathan Budd,